Hey, deserving listeners, we have a special guest today, Britney, who is a cam model. If you watch my 90 Day Fiancé videos or you watch 90 Day Fiancé, there was a storyline in which there was a fella named Mike who was trying to ridicule his partner because she was breaking up with him by outing her on the TV show as being a cam model. And, he was like, you better marry me, or you better be with me. You better accept my money, because otherwise you're going to have to go back and do that one thing. I can't remember exactly how he was wording it, but it was a pretty ugly display. And she was like, so what? And I remember thinking, good for her, that there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's no shame in doing sex work, and there's no shame in doing sex work online. There's no shame in being a cam model. We need to move beyond that kind of silliness, and good on her for being able to just state that in a very confident way. And so Britney reached out to me on email saying that she's a cam model and that she was appreciative of my take. So we were going back and forth, and I thought, I don't know that much about it. So I thought to have Britney on the podcast to talk about her experiences, because I'm guessing a lot of listeners out there will be interested. Welcome to the podcast, Britney.
Oh, thank you so much.
I can hear the rooster outside.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, hopefully it won't get interrupted too much. I have like so many roosters, so it's, yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. So the first thing I want to talk about, Britney, is a listener to the podcast, Jessica Summers, actually wrote a dissertation about online sex work. And she interviewed 5 online sex workers about their experiences, and was also having questions regarding feminism. And so I'm just going to read some parts of her dissertation, which I think was really interesting. She says, feminist theory has long grappled on the paradox of empowerment versus exploitation in the adult entertainment industry. So Britney, what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely there's kind of like 2 polar views on it. Like, I acknowledge that there's women, even there's like groups on Reddit that I'm a part of that are like helpful, like super helpful feminist groups that are very much like anti-sex work in every form, and see it as very exploitative. Yeah, I agree with them on most other things. And then, there's with third wave feminism, it's this idea of like, of course you can be out there sexually, that's your body, you're empowered. For me, it's very much like taking control of how I want to display my body, what I want to come off as, like the ability to, make money in any way I want. I'm literally in charge of like every single aspect of my job. Like, I'm helping people with my job. But yeah, no, to me, it is pure feminism in that, like, it's my body. I'm going to control it the way I want. I'm going to put it out there the way I want.
Also in the dissertation, it says one participant stated that she had switched to a specific domination-focused persona in order to avoid future attachments with her clients and to justify the use of stricter emotional boundaries. So what do you think is going on there?
Oh, that's kind of interesting, actually. It kind of relates to me. So when I first started cam modeling, I was just doing it like typical, I guess you could say, like just where it's like normal. The term would be like vanilla sexuality, kind of. It was like fine, but for like many reasons, including for me, like also this idea of like, I wanted it to be purely kind of more intellectually focused, and rather than like so much body focus, I switched to doming myself. In real life, I'm a submissive. I'm more of like a switch, like a little bit of a switch, but basically like 80% submissive. So there's not anything in my job that like turns me on. And I would say, like, even when I was like doing normal camming, there wasn't anything really turning me on either, but it was just kind of, there's just kind of more of a boundary I found, like, by doing something that to me is like very much not in my kind of like sexual realm. Like, my brain is able to really focus on the other aspects of it, I guess you could say. Like, it's easier in that regard. Yeah.
Is that helpful to you to be more emotionally distant from that?
Yeah, definitely. Because so I would say one part of camming is it is taking on like a very large emotional burden. Like, after I'm done, like, so I work usually like 3 or 4 hours, and when I'm done, it's like, oh, I need like another like 4 or 5 hours to completely decompress. And other, like I have like a male cam model friend that I'm pretty close with. He has the same thing. I don't know. I've talked to like a couple of people. It seems like they tend to have that too. Even though I, didn't go to school for psychology or have anything like that, I am giving people therapy to a certain extent. I'm listening to their complaints. I'm listening to, things that happen at home, like learning things about them. I'm also trying to get into their head to try to kind of make them feel more and more and more comfortable to get a deeper sexual experience. So it's like my brain is constantly working and trying to figure out, like on the fly, like, okay, if I say this, then this will do this. If I do that, maybe push back this way, move back this way, changing my wording, changing my angle, all these different things. It's like a lot that's going on at once. And there's also that pressure of being live to like, oh, everyone see me right now. So I kind of compare it to like being both a therapist and an actress. Like, it's like I have to, disassociate from my normal self, Britney, in order to like do it for like 4 hours. And then it's like, once I'm done, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, now it's like back to feeding my chickens and, petting the dog and like painting and watching bad TV and, stuff like that. It's like feels normal. So it's like nice to step out of myself, but it's also nice to step back into myself. I'll say that. Yeah.
Interesting. So the way you described it, the way it sounds to me, it's you're with maybe not all of the clients or the customers, but with some, you're really, it's your job. They pay you money, and the people that like what you're doing are more likely to pay more money or be more ongoing customers. So you're incentivized to provide a service that they would value, and so you're entering their mind on a really deep level. It sounds like you're really tapping into some that they're consenting to. They're going there, and you're trying to predict or understand them on such a level so that you could reach across the internet and actually create a profound emotional experience for them.
Yeah, so totally. Before I was Cami, I was actually a teacher for 7 years, an art teacher, and it's very like people are going to be like, what? Like, how is that similar at all? But there's weirdly a lot of similarities in it, in that. So my focus on teaching art was to children, and a lot of, it depends, different age groups, but my kind of main focus was process over product. So it was this idea of you're using art to solve a problem. And so the thing that comes out of it isn't necessarily like, it doesn't need to be perfect and like anything like that. What matters is kind of the self-esteem that you're developing through getting through this problem, through like solving this puzzle. And there's a lot of self-doubt that happens to, the person doing it. They can along the way, like, have something pop in their head, like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm so dumb. I'm so stupid. Or like, they have to develop like a persistence in that. And you come upon a lot of students that have all different learning styles. And so I can't just stand up there and, just write on the board and everyone's going to get it. I have to, depending on each student, my goal was to cater to them, to kind of be like, okay, well, they really like, they're really into this one. I mean, it's children, so like this one, Minecraft. So it's like, okay, they don't want to be in this art class. They're really struggling. How can I cater this project to be about something that they want, like Minecraft? How can we kind of integrate the same aesthetic concepts that we're trying to do, but within what they want, and so that they will still be able to solve that problem, but have this kind of motivation. And I see it in the same way that when I'm camming with, I call them like the regulars, like people that, it's like I'm developing like a regular kind of, hopefully they come back to see me over and over again. I'm asking them lots of questions. I'm trying to figure out, do they want me to be more strict, less strict? they want me to purely focus. It's going in this direction is what they really want, is what they want. Yeah. So there's no kind of like one size fits all. It always depends on like each individual user. And so I'm always actively taking notes on users, and, you know, they come in my room like, oh, hey, so-and-so, how's your dog? Or like this and that. And it kind of creates a sense of security for them. Just like with the person I'm teaching, to be able to be like, oh, I can put my trust in Britney. She can guide me. I feel safe with her. Therefore, you know, I can get deeper and deeper and deeper. I guess in the same way, yeah, when I've had like a good therapist, that's how I feel with a therapist, a teacher, like, yeah, it's like anyone that you have like a really good experience with. And like what I really care about is, of course, the money, but yeah, the experience as well. It's for me, it's like a really challenging and interesting job. It's like, yeah, you know.
Yeah. So give me a lay of the land. You say regulars, like how many regulars are we talking about? How long is a regular relationship like?
I've been camming for about like 2.5, almost 3 years now. And yeah, I've had a few regulars that start, well, there's one person that yeah, I've known for like 2.5 years. Like he just sent me like a cool birthday present, and we're like basically friends. Like there's actually like, we're literally like, we're just like friends at this point, which is kind of funny. So that was interesting. But most of the regulars, yeah, it's like someone who's kind of come back and forth to me, whether it's once a month, once a week, you know, does like what we call like a private, where it's just like me and them one-on-one, talking and, you know, engaging and stuff like that. You know, usually I've known them for a few months. Like they definitely had to, what I consider a regular is like someone who spends a lot of money, comes back in my room, like, you know, months at a time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the frequency isn't every day usually.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, so there are people like that. Actually I had someone like that recently. I ended up banning them. That it's totally fine that someone is like, spending that much time, you know, but it was just to the point where they weren't spending a ton of money on me, first of all, but then also it's like they're literally sitting, I don't know, you know, they tell me things about their life. I don't technically know if it's true or not in regards to this person, but they're like sitting there spending maybe 6 hours a day on the website every single day. It just, at that point, it's just kind of like, okay, you're never satisfied with anything I say. You clearly have an addiction issue. And like, yeah, it was just kind of, it makes me feel uncomfortable at that point. I'm just like, I'm out of here. Yeah.
They weren't satisfied?
Yeah. Like everything. So they wanted me to keep going, kind of like everything I would throw out there for them. They would want me to keep getting like more and more degrading, I would say, to the point where it's just like crossing my boundaries. And I'm just
degrading
like,
to them or to you?
Oh, to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think's going on with that person?
Yeah. So I would say they definitely have an addiction. From what I understand, they were unemployed. Yeah. I mean, I feel really sad, you know, for anyone that's spending, I mean, 6 hours. I mean, it's one thing to get off every day. I think that's pretty normal for a lot of people. Not everyone. There's, you know, there's a huge scale of normal, or whatever you want to call normal. But to me, that's really like someone who they need to get like help in other means, not like just fuel like that issue. It's just like maybe like, so there are people like that are on, for hours just sitting around, not necessarily spending money even, but just on there for hours and hours and hours and hours at a time. And that to me is very dysfunctional. I would say like most of my base are people that come in, are hanging out with me from anywhere between like 15 minutes to like, you know, a couple hours. Yeah. And then, you know, they go about their normal lives. Like
once a week-ish kind of thing?
Yeah. Like once a week. Yeah. I would say once a week seems like, to me, I would be like, oh, that's relatively normal once a week. I would say, so most of the people like like sexuality in general, especially when it comes to kinks, I think there are some people where it's only the kink is something that gets them off, right? It's like that's it for them. But then I think vast majority of people with kinks, it's like you have kind of typical, romantic sexuality, you could say, and then you have also your kinks. So a lot of the time, someone coming in once a week, it's like, well, the kink is only really coming up for them once a week, but the other, they might be I don't know, jacking off in the shower like every day to others that or they don't need like that level of engagement more than once a week, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Going on here with the dissertation, while 4 out of 5 participants by Jessica Summers, while 4 out of 5 participants felt they received emotional support from their clients, 3 out of 5 stated that emotional dynamics with their clients sometimes was a burden. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, it definitely can be. There's been 2 times out of the entire 3 years where I've experienced like definitely a big burden afterwards, like emotional, upset, like bad day at work sort of thing. But one of them, at least the first one, was both were kind of out of left field, honestly. The first one was I was talking with someone who just wanted, typical dumb stuff, but then ended up bringing up like trauma from his childhood that he did not deem as trauma. It was just like something that he was kind of bringing up in the sexual context of wanting to think about, that was just like, oh, you mean you were like very much abused? Like, so I was really upset. Like I was so sad for him. Like, it was just like, oh my God, like really, really deep, upsetting. And also I was seeing him. I wasn't just like hearing it. I think it's one thing, like watching like Vice or, listening to something, but to see like a person actually like say it to me, like the stuff that happened to them, and on top of that have like, for some reason, like no realization that it was abuse, was, I don't know, there was like it was just very upsetting to me in like a visceral way. And so I was very upset, but because I felt so bad for them, I basically just went into like, like kind of trying to tell them like, hey, that's really like horrible what happened to you, blah, blah, blah. And I think they just wanted to continue to like have normal thing. And for me, it was like, whoa, I can't just do that after that. And after that experience, like I learned like, okay, in that case, it was really out of left field because I haven't had that happen to me since. And like I said, this one time that has happened in 3 years is very rare, but like, I have like definitely boundaries. I would say like 99% of people respect boundaries, at least that I deal with. I have ways that my cam is set up where it kind of gets rid of like bad or like people that are just like trolls and stuff like that. Like everyone has to like pay to even like say a word to me. So it's like, I don't like in general, a troll is not going to waste like, $5 on being like, hey, say something bad. So I have it worked out that way. And it's also like a power move that way too. So people are, because some doming are like relatively, that's like part of the deal. It's not like seen as like, oh, you're crazy greedy or something. But yeah, I've been, really lucky in that regard. I'm sure, a lot of people I'm sure have really, I've heard of, I'm on like a Cam Girls subreddit. I've heard bad things, people having traumatic or, very negative experiences. But for me, I really like compartmentalize as much as I can. Like decompress after I'm done working for the night. And just have like a lot of like very strict boundaries to try to prevent, people having kind of like access to my emotional, I don't know what you call it. People,
Your realness, your real authenticity.
Totally. Yeah.
So the first part of this was 4 out of 5 participants felt they received emotional support from their clients. What do you think of that?
That's interesting. I I mean, I will say that it's possible that that pertains to, you are getting like part of the job. I think sex work in a lot of areas is you're getting compliments on your appearance. So that's, affirming for a lot of people, especially what I would say about camming. That's really great is it attracts like you'll see all different body types, all different types of people. Like it's completely, there is a niche for everyone. Like there's no like, oh, you have to be a blonde bimbo in order, like it's totally not that way at all, which I think is really great. So if you're someone who's, maybe kind of insecure about your stretch marks or, just your body in general, you're getting like quite a lot of compliments and stuff like that. So that's really affirming. A lot of people do share things about their life. I mean, I share pretty general things about my life. Like I talk about, yes, drama that happens like with my chickens or, oh, this person, cut me off when I was driving today, like stuff like that. I mean, it's extremely social in that regard. I'm like an introverted person and not very much into people in general. So I'm like, I spend like most of my day like alone just with my pets. And then, I get on cam, it's like, oh, I'm in a room full of like 100 people talking to them and stuff like that. So you're getting that like social, back and forth with people too, to kind of affirm like things are happening and, oh, what do you do today? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Do you depend, yes or no, on the customers and their support of you emotionally?
For me, I would say personally, no, not at all. I will say though, there's been like times when, I've had like a crap day. Yeah, I've been off cam, because I do take breaks. Like maybe I was off cam for a week and then I go back on and it feels really good to like talk to all these people again. But yeah, I've never felt like, oh, I have to, oh my God, like what's like so-and-so doing? Or, oh, I gotta tell them. I don't have that, but I'm sure that maybe someone that's modeling that's more extroverted would possibly have that. Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably, yeah.
A quote from one of the participants says, "The longer a client is around, the more transparency they expect. They want to feel like they know the real you that no one else does. They end up talking more than they watch." What do you think about that?
That definitely happens for some people, but it's a certain type of client. That's like the person that so it's kind of like girlfriend experience type client. That's, it's definitely not the majority, but it is, there's like a sizable amount of people like that it's, they want to, in order for them to have a more intimate experience with me, they want to know more about my life. And I mean, honestly, I'm like flattered by that. Like, I think it's really nice, but I do still really keep like my boundaries up about stuff like that, where let like some stuff in, but like early on I did have an issue. Like one of my first like regular people I kind of like learned that early on, because like this one guy, he was like a really good client, like very, very nice, interesting, started talking more and more, saw me every day, like, but then he's like, oh, can I send you something, email, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, give him my email. And then soon enough, he's emailing me like every day about like what he ate for dinner and like just like stuff that's like, I don't care, like I don't want to hear this, like I'm not looking for a boyfriend, like off the cat, like this is crazy. And so I was getting more and more annoyed, like emotional, like I was like, God, like, my anger was like building up, because there's just like this kind of weird idea of like, do you have like no, like this is so rude of you to do, because it's like no personal space sort of thing, like yeah, I don't know. And so eventually I basically, I didn't handle everything right. Like now I know better to handle it, but I basically kind of exploded at him like, hey, this is like too much. You're like getting like, this is too much for me. I'm going to have to cut this off. Like it's just enough. I would say now, yeah, it's kind of, so I'm very strict. A lot of people don't do this about part of what was going on then was I was like using my social media to market myself a lot. And so I was still building my base and, you know, trying to make money. So I was like checking Snapchat all the time, checking emails, like all this stuff. Now it's like, no, you want to talk to me? You can sign up for my OnlyFans, write me a message. Like, I'll write you a message back. It's going to be a like, but no, I do not check my Snapchat when I'm not working. I don't give anyone like my personal phone, like nothing, like no one gets anything from me. It's like the only time when you're going to get any response is when working. Like, and, yeah, I'm very strict about that because when it starts to blur into your normal life, it gets very disruptive. And, although I could probably make more money by like being more engaged with users like that, it's just not for me. Like my emotional health is like, no, like I just want to be left alone when not working. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, deserving listeners, today's episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. When you sign up, use the code Seattle16. HelloFresh sends you easy-to-make meal kits delivered right to your door every week. Ingredients travel from farm to your doorstep in under a week, so they're always fresh, all without having to leave your house, which appeals to me because I hate running errands. Puts me in a bad mood, to be honest. HelloFresh is super flexible. You can skip weeks when you need to. You can pick your favorites from 50 different weekly options. In our house, we love all the recipes, but some of them that are really great are the citrus beef tacos, their barbecue sloppy joes, and their pizzas. You know, me and my pizzas. So go to HelloFresh.com/Seattle16, that's Seattle16, and use the code Seattle16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/Seattle16 and use the code Seattle16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. And remember that HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. Another participant in the study said, sometimes gender roles are relevant. Most of the guys who leave big tips want to feel like they've given something special. Some of them want to make rules for how we communicate and how we earn tips. I think they do like to feel like they have control over the relationship, and I guess I benefit from them believing that. What do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I would say what's interesting, some things I've learned about, money throughout doing this kind of work is there are some guys that they do, like for them, giving money is very enjoyable. It's like extremely, it does make them feel closer to you in a certain way. And that in itself is enjoyable for them. You know, I, as like a maybe more of a stingy person, it's like, no, like I'm like, I only give money to something like I really believe it. I mean, yeah, like a Patreon here, I give to NPR, stuff that I listen to all the time that I consider art. You know, I'm gonna like give my money to. It has nothing to do with like getting a closer piece of something, but for some people, it is definitely. There's kind of a power and control with money. And it is very psychological for, you know, I do FinDom stuff too. And that's like a whole nother kind of, deeper issue with money as well. But I would say, so there is a suspension of disbelief definitely that you have to do in the same way that if you're like a spy, like I love watching like spy movies, like where you know, oh, you have to like convince this guy, he's like a very evil guy, but like convince him like, you know, to be in love with you and blah blah blah, and you know, he's really gonna think these things, and you're gonna get the information out of them that way, just like you're gonna get the money out of them by them thinking certain things. So you do have to kind of, you know, play the game to a certain extent, but you're aware that you're playing the game. The client is, because it could be male or female, like, or, you know, it's like someone, they are suspending their disbelief about the money. They're basically like, you know, in one hand thinking, oh, like what we see with Mike, it's crazy. It's like, he's like paying her. But then he doesn't want to think of it like that. He wants to think of it as, I'm giving her a gift, you know, and that's totally in the same way with sugaring. It's like that as well for sugar babies. It's kind of this idea of, oh, I wouldn't, like the guy would say like, oh, I would never see a prostitute or an escort. Like they feel that they are giving you a gift. You're a woman, struggling in some way, or you just got out of school, or you're going back to school, you're getting this degree, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, you're accomplished in this that way, and he wants to gift you stuff. And it's still a suspension of disbelief because he's just paying you, but they want to tell themselves a different story. And so part of the job is playing along with that. When it gets like past a certain point, if they're, if someone makes me uncomfortable, it's like, boom, shutting it down. Like that's how I do it. Like, you try to get as much as you can before you shut it down, sort of thing. And I think that's how a lot of people work. As horrible as it sounds, it's like, I watch porn, I don't pay for it. Like, I don't like, it's kind of like, these are people that really want way more of an engagement than, a lot of other people that are totally fine with just going to Pornhub or, watching a romantic movie or something like that. So, to me, it's like they're paying for a service. Like you're going to, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you should never feel bad about it. It's obvious what's happening. I mean, they're paying for a service, and anyone who believes otherwise is deluding themselves, and that's on them. But do you ever have people that get upset at you for, in their perception, leading them on?
Oh, well, so let's see. I have not had that happen, but I had I don't know if it's not exactly the same thing, but I had a user who was a regular, who's he showed red flags early on, but I kind of just like dismissed it. But like he got very upset at me. I had to block him the other night because I was paying attention to other people in the room who were tipping me. I like randomly came on, and like a lot of people were tipping at once, which is very rare. And so it was like he got like very jealous and upset, and like, it just said like a super rude comment. It was just like, boom, like you're blocked. Like that's how I handle it. But if you're dependent on someone for that money, or like, it's kind of, I'm in a privileged position, I'll say that, in terms of like, I've been doing it for a while. I'm making enough money to live completely on my own, like live in a nice place, like have privacy. There's a lot of people that are working from third world countries, or just from, they're in a worse state, like they're not in the same. So for them, they might feel like they have to continue with that relationship despite being put into a bad position by that person. You know what I mean? So that's where it gets kind of like, there's definitely that aspect for some people. It just kind of depends on like, what your level is in terms of like how is your life okay outside of that, like how dependent you are. And I think the best way to go into camming is to, like I found, is just to be like, in your mind, it's kind of suspension of disbelief. Like, oh, if you don't make a lot of money tonight, whatever, like I'm fine, like go on the next night, blah, blah, or else you'll get like really bogged down, because you'll have nights where you make like $30, other nights where you make $600. It's like super up and down. It ends up being consistent by the end of the month, I think, for most people, but it is like this strange up and down. And so, I will say like a factor, probably sounds like a tangent, I guess, but like, a factor in this is how dependent you are on that regular, I guess, if you are going to take that kind of abuse or not. And for me, it's just like full stop, no. But I am also acknowledging I'm in like a better position than some people. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Another bit from Jessica Summers' dissertation is only 1 in 5 of the women had been doxed during their online career, though all 5 participants acknowledged doxing is an unavoidable job risk. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is. It's an unavoidable job risk. It is kind of one of the big sacrifices that, there's a reason why not everyone is like signing up to cam or, be a stripper or this or that, like, because there is stigma, and, the doxing is part of that. Oh, you get doxed. It's, there's a certain level of potential danger, it getting out to your family, this and that, like all these kind of horrible aspects that kind of depending on your situation.
Have you ever worried that you'd be doxxed, that someone would figure out where you are? I mean, I want to point out earlier, you actually said where the island you live on.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, there's like a few people on that. Yeah, I'm like, so I'm not worried about like the danger. The thing is that because I'm a painter and my painting career is like very important to me, I don't want that to get mixed up with what I do as a job, because to me, people will then like, you know, not, they might come at my painting with a different perspective, or just like not be as interested in my painting in certain ways if they like know what I do for my day job. It's like, that's the only reason for me. Other than that, I would be, like my family knows. My dad thought it was like ridiculous. So my dad's very eccentric. I mean, I kind of have a history of being like a strange person in general. So like, I don't know. It's kind of like, I'm always kind of, I'm a painter and like always been an artist person. I wore like a trash bag to school. I was in high school one day to impersonate like like Darcy from Smashing Pumpkins. Like, I've just always done very strange things. And so it's just not, it's more of like an eccentric choice. I feel like to a lot of people, it would be like not, I mean, also I'm like 35 years old. It's just kind of like, you know, it's much worse if you're, starting out like, oh, you're in college right now and you're doing this. Oh my God, what if the college finds out? What if, you know, a lot of people do this temporarily to then go on to do, you know, a more like typical career, that will, you know, if that job were to find out, you can get fired, or, you know, there's all sorts of horrible real world implications. For me, I've kind of accepted the fact that like, I don't know, like I really like doing this, and in general I just have always done kind of it's just not, I really like doing some form of sex work, so it's just I'm accepted of it. But some people are not, like it's going to be a problem for them. So I would say there's a huge risk involved for certain people, and it is the main reason I think why most people don't choose to do it. I mean, there's other reasons too, but it's one of the biggest reasons.
Have you ever worried that one of the angry customers would figure out where you live?
Not really, to be honest. I do have geese too, so it's just like people won't mess with me because I have the geese. Like, it's just like everyone is afraid of geese, I swear. I mean, they have teeth. Their wings are incredible. Like my goose is like, I have two geese, and like the male is like the angriest animal. Like I have a dog too, and I mean the dog's afraid of the goose. Like they're just an amazing deterrent. And I have like a pellet gun, I have pepper spray. Like, I don't know, I'm very much like prepared, I guess, for an attack, in my opinion. So like I'm not really afraid of that. I feel like I'm lucky in that I feel like I've never had a traumatic experience in life involving having to defend myself. So I'm kind of maybe naive in that regard. But it's also then I do not live with that fear, therefore. Whereas, if someone had if they've been assaulted before by a man or this or that, like there's great reasons why they would be like, very much on guard or paranoid about that. So
so in my head I see some creep coming over your fence, and
the goose is gonna bite him.
The goose has now attached himself to the guy's butt, and he has like a couple pellets hitting him in his back.
Yeah, exactly. And I got my security
Get me out of
system.
here.
Yeah, my security system goes off like crazy loud. Like, I got awesome neighbors next door, and they've told me like, anyone gives you trouble, I'll beat their ass. Like, it's like an awesome Hawaiian family. I mean, it's just, I'm like, I feel like definitely safe. I do live in a notorious kind of area with a lot of issues, like I was saying before, about like theft and meth addicts and stuff like that. But I'm really high up, and so they're kind of like zombie meth people. They don't like come up the hill so high, it would be too long for them to come. So in general, like I'm in a pretty good situation. So Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Going on with the dissertation, newer and lower earning sex workers reported engaging in higher degrees of communication outside of their set work hours and were more heavily emotionally involved relationships with their clients. So that's basically what we're saying. Another quote here from another participant. I think some of them know, so this is one of the participants, I think some of them know the girl they see online is just a little part of who I am, and others really do think I'm just the sexual character. It can be scary that some people don't know the difference. Do some people, you were saying earlier that some people do have that confusion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you see with like Mike, dudes that are incels, like, you know, yeah, they don't have, I mean, to me, it's like a mental problem. Yeah, it's like they don't, they feel entitled. Yeah, I mean, they'll say misogynist things. It's just boom, like you're out. Yeah, but it is, yeah, there's a huge group of dudes out there like that. It is, I would say, like a pretty big issue in today's society. It's something that, yeah, I read a lot about. I'm interested in. I've like gone into those like subreddits before to see what they say. I've watched like that horrible Kevin Samuels guy, like just all this stuff. I am really interested in incels and misogyny and just kind of being aware of like, I mean, yeah, I remember when the pickup artists came out, all this stuff.
Do you get customers who will have those kinds of tag words like, you're just a feminazi that's trying to make men into women and screw you, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so like I'm lucky because the way my room's designed, it's like, yeah, they'll have to like pay me to say that. So it's kind of like an insult to them. But if I didn't have that up, like I think in the very beginning of camming, yeah, I mean, you know, you see comments online, or I've seen, you know, people say stuff like that online for sure. I guess I have a really thick skin about that because to me, they're just like, I just see them as like disgusting people. So it's just kind of like, it doesn't get to me when someone says that. I'm more just like, oh my God, they're so lonely and sad and like, you know, living in their mom's basement. Like, you know, yeah, I mean, it's just like,
So what's your take on Jimena watching it? Is there, do you think that she actually had feelings for Mike?
So I would say like, okay, so my take on it is that she genuinely gave him a try. Like, I think that, you know, he was a good opportunity. She obviously had her family kind of like pushing her like, hey, this is a really good opportunity. I really like what you say about how you can want both a better life and to fall in love. I think that that's like a super like, yeah, that's like exactly like, I was like, oh, that's totally right. Like, that's a really good way to put stuff in perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's kind of what it was with hers. You know, he starts as a client. He's a generous guy, like, you know, and so generous that's like, well, yeah, you know, give him a try. You know, she did genuinely, to me, she was like trying. It just turned out that it's like, you know, she seemed to be really concerned with, she wanted a guy that I think acted more like typical man, if that makes it, like more kind of like a macho man and romantic type, like where it's, you know, he's not so needy, or yeah, you know, kind of like typical male archetype. Like, yeah. I think that's kind of why she was not attracted to him. I mean, in addition to like, honestly, I think most people would agree, like someone like farting on you and you're kissing. I mean, to me, that would be like, get the hell out of here. Like that's it. We're done. Like, what is this? Like, yeah, like.
Could you see yourself, say you were in that situation where you're single and your family is depending on you for money, and the pandemic just starts and everyone loses their jobs, and you go on cam modeling. From my understanding, it was just a few days before she even met Mike.
Yeah, it's really quick, yeah.
And he starts giving you money, and then you start thinking, my whole family, my kids depend on this money. This is pretty important. Could you see yourself legitimately saying yourself, just your own personality wise, going, well, yeah, I mean, let's see what where this could go, because what if I do fall in love with him and this does work out, and then it's just like even more money and more security and I'm in love. and I have a partner.
Yeah.
So that's one question. The other question is, could you see yourself, if you were really in that situation, deluding yourself into believing that you actually might like him when you really don't like him?
So for me personally, if I'm not attracted to someone, it's just like no, like 100%. If I was attracted to him, if it was like, oh yeah, maybe we don't have everything, like a ton of stuff in like, if there's a lot of like other stuff that wasn't working, but at least he was attractive, and seemed smart, and like, had like a few like very basic essential things for me, plus the money thing. Yeah, like I would definitely give it a try and see. I mean, I have like kind of maybe a somewhat similar situation. Like in the past, I sugared, and there was someone that I would see that, I mean, a lot of times, yeah, he's like very attractive, super attractive, like someone I would want to date in normal life. He like made me dinner, like he was just like a great, like a very, like a gentleman and everything there. And we had good sex, but it's just like, there's no chemistry there. We're like really good friends. Like he's like visited me before and stuff like that. We have a good time, but yeah, it just sucks because there's like no chemistry. And so it's like this thing of like, yeah, for me, it's just so important that, yeah, it's like no matter what the security is, it's kind of, but that's me. It's not like that for everyone. So like, I just think that kind of depends on how much value you place on like different things. Like I don't have a kid, for instance. So him and I having children, I'm like very happily child free, don't want any kids ever. But like, I would see it as if I had kids, it would be a whole different ball game of like what I'm looking for in a partner would totally change. And so, at least to me, like from watching her, it seemed like, yeah, she was like genuinely giving him a chance of like, maybe it can change. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to being in a relationship where things are like good at first, but then they're like, things are, as you're going along, things are like not adding up, and you're like, yeah, but I don't want to leave that, like, but they're so good in this way. And you're kind of like on the fence for a while before you fully just like things get broken off with. And so it's this weird, shitty gray area where you feel bad about later because you're like, I should have just like left them, I should have just cut them off when I first saw it.
Right.
But when you're in the moment and you have like a lot of ties to them in different ways, it's like, you're trying to kind of delude yourself into like trying something. And
right. Yeah, absolutely. That's the way it looks to me.
Yeah.
So if you out there in podcast land don't watch 90 Day Fiancé, you're not going to know the landscape of this, but I'll explain it a little bit. There's a cast member named Gino, and he and his partner Jasmine, there's a storyline about him in the past before he met Jasmine having had what they call sugar babies, which I didn't know they called that. In the back in the day, they'd call them escorts or something, or something on those lines. And where you go on a website, I guess, and you connect with different sugar babies is what they're called, I guess. And you, according to Gino, he would say that he would pay $200 or so just to go to dinner with them. And people are skeptical. They're like, wait, there wasn't sex involved. You're lying. What's wrong with you? You're a creep. What kind of loser would do that kind of thing? What do you think about all that talk around Gino?
Yeah. So yeah, it's super crazy to me, calling him a creep and stuff like that. So, the website that people typically use is like Seeking Arrangement. And it is like, so what Jasmine said about it being like an international dating site is very true. Like it's like touted as like kind of international, like, oh, you're visiting this country, let's see who's, around. I mean, in a certain extent, like Tinder. The whole thing is it's basically this idea of a mutually beneficial situation. What I found when I was sugaring, well, there are a lot of differences between sugaring and escort, but like one of the things that I found was any guy that I was like going on dates with for that I'd always ask them like why Seeking Arrangement versus a regular dating site. or an escort situation or whatever, and they would always like totally be like anti-prostitution, anti-escort, anti-everything. It's kind of goes back to that thing about gift giving, where they want to see themselves as like giving gifts rather than like paying someone for sex. It's like they see that as like dirty. It's like this weird cognitive dissonance that they have. It's like, this is very different than this, even though it's just weirdly similar. Like in a lot of ways there are differences, it's weirdly similar. But so I'll say, like, from my experience, I started doing it after like I was dating normally, and I was getting really fed up by like going on dates and then starting to, I want to have like maybe I hooked up with that person and then that's it. Like I don't hear from them. Like I felt used. Like there was just a lot of times when I go on, even if I was going on several dates with someone and then, there's just like behaviors that they would do that I was just like, oh, that's not like gentlemanly or whatever. Or, yeah, you just start to feel used for your time and like driving out there to go to a bar, potentially spending money if they're not paying for drinks, stuff like that. Like there's all these kind of expenses, getting dressed up, like all this stuff. It just started to be like, God, this is like a horrible feeling. I'm sick of this. Like I should, yeah. And I watched The Girlfriend Experience. It's like the executive producers, like Steven Soderbergh or whatever. And it was such an amazing show. And I was like, I should like try, like sugaring. Like I was like, I'm going to try this. So I signed up for that website. And yeah, it's basically just this idea of this person is interested in me. Are they, attractive enough? Like, do they have things in common with me? Blah, blah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go on a date. But yeah, it's like, you're going to pay me for my time, like, cause you're rich. So you're giving me money, like, because it's a mutually beneficial agreement. It's kind of this idea of like, you want me, you're lonely. You're not going to put a lot of the time. It's like, they're lonely. They're too busy with work. They're like, CEOs or like just, create like lawyer, like super, super busy person. They don't have time for a relationship. And so for me, it's like, well, relationships are emotional work, like back and forth. It's, there is like this exchange back and forth of things. It's a mutual exchange, of course, hopefully, but it's like an exchange. And so this person is aware they're not able to give the emotional labor that is required in a relationship for, perfectly plausible reasons. But they want to have like a really nice, intimate, fun experience with someone. So I might hang out with someone, for a day, like go like 4 seasons, like, like do all this luxurious thing. To me, it was like, oh my God, it's so glamorous because I'm not rich. Like it was super interesting hanging out with, people that are in this kind of like different part of society. I felt like I was like looking in on a world. So it was very interesting. And yeah, I love to have sex. So it's just, there's like nothing, no cons for me. Like and I made friends through it. Like, I never had any bad experiences. Again, I'm really good with like boundaries and, safety. Like I was very much like, super had like all sorts of safety protocols in place and stuff like that before I would meet someone or go on a second date with them or whatever. I would never like sleep with someone first time I met them. It's like, oh, we gotta have dinner first, like hang out, like, I learn about them, they learn about me. And then it's kind of like, maybe the next time we, have like a more intimate thing going on. But
so yeah, they're paying for dinner and whatnot, but are they also paying you directly?
So it's kind of seen as like a gift, but yeah, it is literally like they're paying. Yeah, I told them like, hey, you want to have dinner with me? It's gonna be like $200 just to have dinner for like an hour. You want to go longer than that? Like usually someone, if I was gonna hang out with someone, it would be like $700, like just to hang out, like, and potentially do more. But like even then, it's like, oh, I don't do this, I'm not interested in this, and this, like, that sort of stuff too. I mean, but to me, it wasn't, it was just like this way of kind of, I know a lot of people would be like, that's insane, but like taking my power back from like all these lame dates, it was just like, okay, well, if I have like a bad time with someone, well, at least I made like $700 from it. Like, geez, like I don't feel like I lost anything. It was like, oh, cool, I can like save up to buy something I want, or like for me, it ended up, I only did it for a year because I had the goal in mind of saving up to move my entire life over Hawaii. And so I made enough to be able to do that. And, yeah, and I had savings when I came here. So therefore I was able to, start camming. It's very hard in the beginning. So you don't make barely any money for the first like 6 months, and then it slowly ramps up like over time. So I knew like ahead of time I had to have like savings to be able to do that and stuff like that. So yeah, to me it was, I was making a really good rate teaching, but I wasn't making enough. And it was kind of like, I was like teaching like cute little kids, like doing art during the day. And then at night I had these like glamorous, like, like get all dressed up, like go to this really nice hotel, like, meet this person who makes like, millions of dollars a year. Like it was just like a weird period of my life, but a very exciting one. I'm always like, I can't wait till I'm like 80 and I get to put these experiences in my memoirs, what I mean? My memoir, like, I don't know, it's just like a fun thing to do. So, but it's, that was my experience. I know a lot of people, it's more like, they're broke college students. That's kind of the typical sugar baby, right? It's like, I mean, I was like 25, or not 25. I was like, almost 30 or whatever doing it. But a lot of people are younger, and there's like, I don't know, there's a lot of guys that are like, like they're old, and it's really upsetting, this idea of, I mean, I did hear this from some guys. It's just totally misogynist. I mean, a lot of the people that I dated, there's plenty of views that they had that I was completely disgusted by, but it's kind of this idea of like, like, I'm like, what? To me, it was like watching a show. It's like, God, this is such a fascinating person. Like, what is it going? Like, they think this, and this, that is so weird. I'm like watching this happen in real life. Like this person exists. Like, so whether it was about like financial, like economic issues, politics, I mean, there's like, Trump supporters that want to date. I was like, oh my God, it's so interesting. Like just all this stuff, like hearing what they had to say.
But you're at work, I guess.
Yeah,
is one way of looking
totally.
at it.
Yeah,
so
it
it's
was
less
like work. Yeah,
it's less personal. You're less affected by it. It sounds.
Oh
like.
yeah, no, totally. It was like, to me, it was kind of that idea of, I mean, like I do now, kind of going into a persona. So like putting on the outfits and everything was like kind of part of, it's almost like superhero getting dressed up, and then you act the part and stuff like like you act like, however, it's kind of like, they would prefer me to be more ladylike in this way or that way, and like it's just kind of fun game, I felt like. So like, yeah, but I did actually make like friends through that too. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, tell the transition from Tinder to Sugar Baby was an interesting one that you talked about, which I'm interested more in. You're on Tinder, you're trying to find a long-term partner, right?
So at the time I knew I was transitioning. So like, I'm very much like a monogamous, serial monogamous. Like I've always been in like very long-term relationships, and like I was engaged for 7 years. At the time it was like, my engagement, we had incompatibilities. It was ending. So it was kind of like, we're still living together as like friends. It was kind of like this weird thing. I was like exploring my sexuality. It was kind of one of those things of like, I hadn't had, it was kind of, our sex life wasn't that great for a long time. So it was kind of like, okay, now we're broken up. We had like tried. So it's kind of a weird situation because first he kind of like, I had brought it up and he was on board with the idea of like, hey, let's try this to help our relationship, because like it turned out kind of, we went through, it was kind of like an eyes wide shut situation where like figuring out like just trying to keep together, but through this really kind of like dark different methods like that involve like sex, trying to like, because it was like, I kind of, oh my God, sorry. It's like, it goes like way back. Basically, I had an abortion at one point. Like I had gotten pregnant. I don't want a kid, so I had an abortion. During the abortion, it was such like a physical, there was like something that happened where it like physically awakened in me of like this, like, oh my God, I don't want my life to just be this like I feel like there's more to life that I'm not getting right now. I'm like really happy in this relationship, but not with the sex life. Like I'm missing all these things sexually that are, as I said, like submissive, like as like BDSM stuff I wasn't getting at all. So it's like, hey, this is really important to me. Let's like try, doing it. Like, can you try acting this out? Blah, blah, blah. It just wasn't working. We went to like kink workshops and stuff. Wasn't working. And then it was
meaning that what I've seen before is that he doesn't, he's trying, it's forcing him to do something that doesn't really turn him on. And
right.
It's also not really part of his personality to be.
Exactly. And so for me, it sucked, but it was kind of like he, even if he tries, it's still, I know he's not turned on by it. For me, it has to be part of the equation. There has to be like, we're mutually connecting in that way where we're feeding off each other. And so it was so then it was like, hey, what if we open the relationship and I look for DOMs like on the sides, and you can look for people. He wasn't interested in seeing other people, but I ended up getting involved with like DOMs, and was going through people, and a lot of them were, because I was inexperienced, it was kind of, there's a lot of like very negative experiences with certain people where it's like, instead of them being DOMs, is kind of like, oh, they're just bad people. Like there's no separation between their sexuality and their personal life. Like there's like, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Not all the time, but like a couple people that I met. So it was just kind of very volatile. And then it kind of got to the point where, my partner was, like feeling neglected, and of course, and I mean, yeah, I feel very shameful about this part of the relationship because it was just like, we should just broke it off, but I was just trying to make it work. It's like 7 years, like I was trying everything. So it was like, okay, let's try. He confessed that he was kind of turned on by the idea of me sleeping with other people. So that was kind of a component where I think most people in monogamous relationships, it's not easy to just transition to poly. And so it was like, oh, well, yeah, it turned out he was like turned on by this. So I was like, oh, okay. So what if, if I do sugaring and you're kind of involved in that process of us messaging, you're watching me message people, like kind of make it into something maybe that will help our sex life in a certain way where we're kind of like both doing things for each other. It didn't really end up like working out that way. I ended up I just didn't. And basically a relationship ended, but regardless of that, like it was kind of like, oh, well, sugaring was fun, so I continued to do it. But it kind of started off as this like, oh, like this is a good idea because that way it's kind of like we're both, he's watching me do this, so he's getting something out of it, I'm getting money out of it and fun. And it's kind of like, oh, it's this very strange way of like like Coen Brothers level, like making things happen to work, but it's like, no, like none of it actually like works. It's just too unconventional and strange. So like, yeah, it's fine. Like we're like super good friends. We're still like best friends. He's like the best person ever, but it was like a hard period of time. So sorry, get back to like what I was saying. It was that we were in this weird place where I was still like, we were still living together, like broken up with for like a year. And I knew I was going to be moving because our lease was up and we couldn't do this forever, but it's like this weird. So I was like, okay, I don't know. I was in this mindset. I still wanted to date. And so I was like, yeah, like looking for people through not just Dom sites, but yeah, then, like, oh, let's go on dates. Okay, Cupid and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know. My picker was like bad, but it's just a lot of people. It's like, I don't think I was like presenting myself the right way because I was so kind of like, oh, I really want someone to be sexually compatible with me. That's the most important part. And so that kind of gives off the wrong vibes, and you end up attracting like, some people that are maybe not the best. So ended up just feeling like, yeah, like this weird used thing. Whereas when I would meet people for the sugaring, I was like, oh, I don't feel used at all. I'm having like a really nice day and like, having fun with them. And yeah, so it's kind of like an interesting thing in that regard where it's kind of, like there are similarities, but it's different too. Yeah. With dating.
So if you had, say, broke it up before, you're with your previous partner and you're thinking your sex life isn't the way you want it to be, and you start having thoughts about being with other people, you go through some troubles and then you break up. And would you be here where you are right now if you had, because it sounds like the compromises you were making at the end of that relationship led you down a road to where you are now today with your career.
Yeah, definitely. Yes and no, because so when I was like 18, I did like Suicide Girls. Like I was like, oh, like I was always really, so it's like this weird larger thing. I was always really into fashion and magazines, like growing up, like, oh, like creating this world through like a still image, like this idea of me, like later in college, like learning about like Cindy Sherman, just this idea of kind of creating like an entire world, like based on, oh, you're wearing this, and this, you're kind of presenting the clothes, presenting this mood. And so photography and like self-portraiture is always like interesting to me. It wasn't about me and like me as like, oh, how do I look and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of like self-loathing like for years about like how I looked and stuff like that. So it wasn't that. It was just like this idea of kind of becoming someone else and like creating, yeah, like an actual world. So that started, and I was like ashamed about that for a while because I was like doing an art series on like selfies and stuff like that because it was really interesting to me, this idea of like everyone's taking selfies and posting on MySpace and stuff. It is like a really crazy phenomenon, you know. And just what does it mean, like when people are taking selfies, like what kind of narcissism is this? Like this is really interesting to me. What signals are you, I mean, even just looking at dating photos, like what signals are you getting? So I don't know, just like my main focus is portraits, like in painting and people, looking at people, you know, setting up scenes with people is really interesting to me. So yeah, I did like Suicide Girls, where it's basically a new or a erotic photo website, I guess. Like nowadays it's like soft, or it's always been like soft core, you would call it like soft core, because it's just basically like nude pinup stuff sort of. Yeah, but like, yeah, so I did that and then felt weird about it because like people in my family made me feel like very like negative about it, and I was kind of going through a range of feminism where I was like, I'm never gonna like shave my armpits anymore, like I you know, just a very much like, yeah, like I'm gonna wear like baggy clothes, I'm not gonna put on makeup anymore, like I feel like bad that I took those photos, like blah blah. I went through kind of a phase like that, and then later came to terms like, no, like I can express myself however I want. You know, I don't need to be ashamed. This is like a weird, it's hard to put my finger on like what exactly the impetus is, but it feels creative when I do it. So it's kind of like, yeah, like creating this kind of other thing. So it's like always kind of doing like nudity. Yeah, like I was always kind of interested in sex as like a shock value thing. Like even in high school, I was like, yeah, just like doing kind of like weird, shocking thing, like getting in trouble for, yeah, like you know, art assignments. I had to censor stuff, and I'm like getting arguments like with the principal about I shouldn't have to censor these like naked fairies, like they look great, like why should I have to cover this up, this is wrong, like yeah, just like I don't know, just like really like cliche, like angry teenager, but like mine kind of went into this strange like shock, sexuality is shock.
Interesting. But, so you
yeah,
see the kind of theme developing,
yeah,
that led you to where you are right now.
Yeah, because like for a while I wasn't sure. I was like, yeah, why is it this way? But yeah, there's kind of been, when I look back on my life, there's like a pattern where it's like, oh, yeah, there's always been kind of like a deep interest in, but different forms of it where, yeah, it's like not about sex most of the time. And then, you know, like I see it as there's like my actual personal sex life, and then there's like me projecting a sexual person. They're like two completely different things. Like, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. A patron emailed in, patron Katarina from Stockholm, and she says, in my country of Sweden, and also presently in Canada, France, and Ireland, buying but not selling sex is criminalized. Sweden is the first country in the world to introduce this feminist legislation rule in 1999. Which makes it completely legal to sell your body, but it's a criminal act to pay money to have access to another person's body for sexual purposes. One could argue that porn is a kind of sex for sale, thus legal to produce, but not legal to buy, even if Swedish law doesn't consider it that way, at least not yet. Personally, I think that the commercial aspect, not the sex per se, is the crucial factor that makes porn unethical from a humanistic point of view. In my view, porn is an unhealthy practice for the soul because of the money involved. To treat the most intimate part of life as an object for sale on a commercial market is demoralizing for our self-respect and the respect for others. What do you think about that point of view?
I mean, I like 100% disagree with that, but like, yeah, no, it's totally, okay. So I would say my point of view about that is that, so I guess the way I see it is there's different kinds of sex. Like there's, when you're in love with a partner, you're sharing this like amazing mutual experience that's like a bonding experience. It's deep, it's intimate, it's like the highest form. And I think that is, the goal for everyone is like, to have that kind of, amazing sex. But besides that, then there's other forms where, it's just kind of, your body you just need to kind of get some anxieties out. Like I see it as there's kind of different anxieties that people have, and that like porn kind of is able to like have them experience those anxieties, like going on a roller coaster, for instance. It's like, you're locked and you're safe, you're going through this experience. You're suspending disbelief by anytime I watch a movie, it's like, I'm imagining myself as the character, blah blah blah. And you're able to get out, whatever that is, like through that emotional experience. So in a roller coaster, you really want to feel fear and kind of like adrenaline, stuff like that. A form of arousal. If you're like going to a restaurant, you're like, I want to order, like one of my friends recently is like, I went to this restaurant, I ordered fugu, the Japanese, the fish. And, he was like so worried he was going to die. And like, it's just like, even though there's such a small chance like that's going to happen, like, and he paid like a really, like high amount because it's like a good chef and stuff like that. It's like this idea of you want to experience fear, you want to experience adrenaline, like, something bad could happen. And so it's, to me, porn is a safe way of experiencing something, whether it's romantic, like, like I like watching like long form where it's like, something very romantic happens, and then and then other times I like watching stuff where, something very bad happens and it arouses me, and there's all these kind of anxieties being like worked out in my head through going through this narrative and suspending disbelief. And I feel like it's the body's way of dealing with a lot of negative things by giving a positive, pleasurable feeling to get them out. It's kind of like the body's way of like healing through. It's like, okay, something is really upsetting you, and either you can, have like internal rage about it, or like your body can take like this weird opposite effect that you have no control over, where it makes it feel like, like you're actually getting pleasure by getting out this thing that you're afraid of or don't like. And I think that that's kind of like an interesting aspect of sexuality. And I personally am have like a strong belief that when people do not get, a lot of people have dysfunctional, also, to me, there's the realm of real life and there's the realm of sexuality. And sexuality, I don't like, in general, people have all sorts of, it doesn't mean who you are in real life. Whatever you have going on in your sexuality, it could be like a very negative, scary, like fantasy or whatever that would make you seem like a sociopath in real life if you were to be that way. Mm-hmm. But you're experiencing, you have it inherently in your sexuality. To me, if you're not releasing that through a safe means, like porn, that's not affecting other people, that is, at your discretion, that way you're getting that out. You're very much less likely to ever do anything in real life that's going to build up like in your head and then like make you react in a certain way. To me, it has to, like, there are negative things inside all of us that have to be released in certain ways, and like appropriate ways is kind of the goal, right? It's like kind of, you can't get rid of everything. So you need to kind of figure out ways to handle those things. And so sexuality is one of the ways that the body, in my opinion, kind of handles a lot of dangerous, negative things and feelings. Yeah.
Is it always negative that they're working out?
No, I don't. I mean, definitely, yeah, I don't think so. It kind of depends on the person. I mean, for instance, there's so like someone that okay, so I'll tell you about a couple of people I have that come in. There's someone that comes in that is he's like a nice normal person, a guy, and he has a really loving, awesome girlfriend, according to him, really loving, awesome girlfriend. He loves her so much, but he comes to me for me to like hypnotize him into like cheating on his girlfriend and leaving because of like my boot, like he needs like big boots or whatever. His fear is like really that he's gonna mess up his entire life by leaving this like amazing girlfriend that's too good for him, at what he says over and over again. Okay, and so it's kind of, he has this like fear, I think, in real life that like, oh, he's gonna do something. There's kind of this anxiety at any point. Oh, I'm gonna make a mistake. I'm gonna do something bad. And so he comes to see me to kind of, for me to push on that and basically say like, yeah, like, look at you, you know, you're staring, you can't help it. Like everything's gonna leave. Like everything's gonna be gone. Or, you know, with some findom people, it's kind of like threatening them like, oh yeah, girls only want you for your money, you know that, like blah blah blah, even though they know like if they're a healthy person, that's bullshit, of course. Like they don't actually hold that belief, but they do have that anxiety inside them, like, you know, yeah, going on dates, oh, is this girl only want me for my money, god, I'm so worthless, I'm so pathetic.
Interesting. I think what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, that they are walking around with this anxiety based on perhaps their childhood that they're going to screw things up, even though they're not actually doing anything to screw things up.
Right.
And so to have a simulated experience of screwing things up, they have power over the screwing things up, and they can kind of release that as like, okay, I screwed it up. I actually made myself screw it up, or I made her make me screw it up.
Yeah.
And now I can kind of rest easily without worrying constantly about screwing things up.
Yeah, totally. And it's like a lot of it, or I just think so much is subconscious. Like a lot of sexual fetishes and kinks, I feel like Kinsey dealt with this, where it's, or, you know, before that, Freud, it's in childhood. There's a certain, you know, it's like around like 4 or 5, there's certain anxieties about, you know, dominance with parents and stuff like that, like these power plays that basically then, you know, you end up, certain things just boom, like get in your brain. They become, because you're starting to become, you know, very very like beginning, but like sexual person in certain ways, and also like power struggles with your parents and stuff like that, of like before you're just like baby, like everyone's doing everything for you, you have no power, then it's like, oh no, I want to have power now, and then it's kind of like, you know, there's all these like fights and stuff like that about that, and you know, it's like there's like a lot of stuff that happens like within that time that yeah, it sucks, but it's like it could, you know, you could have it like way later on, it's still there, you can't get rid of it, like it's just there, and it's kind of so
are you working something out when you're doing it?
I don't know, like I don't feel like, so I personally don't feel like with that, but when I do have the type of sex like BDSM sex that involves my kinks and fetishes, definitely, yeah, for me, I definitely feel that way. Yeah, it's a incredible relief, like for me, when I actually am able to like have, you know, a mutual kind of, it's like, yeah, like someone understands, I understand, and it's kind of like, oh, we're both like doing this thing together. This is like, I don't know, I kind of see it as like you're both engaging in a game together, like, you know, oh, you're doing like Dungeons and Dragons or something, so you're like pretending to do stuff. Yeah, to me, it's, you're basically like playing a game, and both people know the rule, or, you know, you obviously go through consent, go through all the rules and stuff like that. I do that. But I guess going back to like what she said, yeah, I just feel like it's pointless to try to get rid of porn and stuff like that. You can have rules for your own relationship. Like, I think, for instance, if I, like, when I was dating someone, if I find out, like, oh, they're going on a campsite and paying a chick, I would be like, that'd be it. I'm out of there. Like, to me, that's cheating. But to someone else, maybe it's not. But to me, having engagement with an individual is cheating. Oh, just looking at like porn where it's like two couple, you know, it's like a couple having sex and stuff like that, I don't consider that cheating. That's just normal. But everyone's different. Like, you know, someone might be like, oh, that's cheating too. Like, it's kind of, you know, you go back and forth with your rules within a relationship. I feel like that's a negotiation of what
do you feel bad that some of the customers' partners are either not finding out or finding out that they are cheating with you?
Yeah, I do. Well, because I see it that way, it's definitely something that does actually bother me. Yeah, it's something that I would say when I deal with someone who is kind of like open about they're hiding that from, it's not like, oh, they're in an open relationship, but because I do have people that are like poly relationships that come to see me and stuff like that, and their partners even, talk to me too. They're both involved. They're like doing this as a thing together, like going on the website. But yeah, for like guys, it really comes down to most of the time it's a shame thing. It's like honestly, like I do aftercare after I do like a session with someone. It's like, oh, like, I don't like just checking, like, how are you feeling? Like just want to make sure, like, I don't think any of those things about you. Like, you seem like super cool, blah, blah, blah. And then, I say like, I'll say like, hey, have you tried like talking to your partner about this? And honestly, like, there's been like 5 or 6 people where I've helped them be able to start a conversation with their partners about like, hey, this is something I'm really ashamed about, but it really turns me on. Like, is there, can we integrate this in some way? Like, and yeah, to me, like that is part of like my job, is also like kind of help people communicate about sex and their needs and consent. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. So she says here, and I just want to repeat this, that porn and I guess cam modeling as well, these are unhealthy practices for our soul because of the money involved. Is it an unhealthy practice?
Yeah, I don't understand that aspect, I guess, because okay, I'll say part of me does see money as like I get the idea of money being dirty in a certain way, because as an artist, one of the things that's kind of always been an issue for me is I don't like selling my stuff. It feels gross. Like, it feels disgusting to like put a price, like, oh, like, and negotiate with someone, because it feels like my baby. It's like this weird, like, it came out of me, and it's just, it shouldn't even have money attached to it. It's gross. But that's like a weird hang up that I have. That's not like, I don't think that that's correct. Like, I don't at all go around thinking like, oh, like any artist that sells their work for a certain amount of money, it's like a weird, dirty like, no, I definitely am aware of like, oh, that's like a weird thing I should work on, because like I shouldn't have thoughts about that like that. I don't know. I guess we live in like a capitalist society, so it's just kind of like money is part of, you could really see anything as a commodity of like trading, and and I just think like,
well, I think the visualization that a lot of people have is you're a piece of meat, and you're offering up yourself as a piece of meat to be objectified and used and then paid for and then discarded. I've heard people even using that language. Of course, not everyone in this category feels this way, but that's the metaphor, the visualization, or even literally how they see it. What do you think of that?
So I guess it goes back to me feeling like if I'm getting like there's always going to be kind of a number of, if I'm getting paid this, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we're in a mutual understanding, like of like, whatever, like I never do anything I don't want to do. So it's always like, yeah, sure. Like, like that's no big deal for me. Like for this much, this definitely equates this or this or that. You know what I mean? I never feel like I'm being exploited at all. I mean, I'm literally in charge of like lighting, advertising, like the filming, the audio, setting up my room, getting my wardrobe together, the networking, like every single aspect of it. It's like 100% under my control. Like, I don't have a boss. Like, it's like 100% all me. I pay taxes, like everything. It's just, like, so I get that people have that opinion. It's just, it's just totally kind of, I feel like that's like how there's opinions where you can debate, and then there's other ones where it's like a value opinion. It's like kind of like they just have kind of they see that as like icky. And it's kind of just like, yeah, that's like not, I don't see that as icky at all, I guess. But if I did, I would be like, maybe yeah.
Yeah. So a couple other emails here just to close it out. Anonymous patron wrote in and said, I used to be a cam model from the age of 18 to 21. I'm 28 now. While I know there are many cam models who find the experience empowering, for me, I went into it coming from a place of deep insecurity, and no, it didn't help that insecurity in the long run, and it was actually quite traumatizing for me. I was a virgin at 18 and did not have any sexual experience prior to starting the cam model. At the time, I did see it less for the. At the time, I did it less for the money and more for the validation I got in seeing men take pleasure in seeing me naked. And I had a lot of trouble finding and staying in long-term relationships during and after that experience. I still do. I'm working on this in therapy. I think the most damaging schema came out of it was thinking that all men are obsessed with sex and that the only value I can bring to a man is through my sexuality. It also generally made me think of sex as performative and not for my own pleasure. I still have trouble taking pleasure in sex rather than trying to perform. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it sounds like someone that, could really benefit from kind of exploring that further, seeking therapy and kind of, yeah, I'm sure that there are like a lot of people that go into have the same exact experience as her, like for sure. That seems like, I feel like I've seen people like write stuff on Reddit, like similar to that. It's definitely understandable.
Because for you were older and when you started, and also had sexual confidence, I'm guessing, compared to someone who had never had sex before and they're 18. Right. I mean, when I read an email like this and I hear about your experience, I think a common conclusion in our society is they'll say, well, let's just shut the whole thing down, because it's icky. But I think another way to look at it, which I can't imagine happening, but that there would be like some kind of counseling service before you even start or something, like particularly if you're younger, or that there would be an age requirement, maybe like you have to be of a certain age or something. But even then, how would you really know? It just seems like there might be a lot of 18-year-olds who do this sort of thing and are harmed in one way or the other. Because it seems because she did it for 3 years, the pretty formative sexual years for herself. Oh yeah,
that's super formative time,
Yeah, and it completely changed the way she sees men and herself and sexuality. It's like her first experiences over a number of years. And if we could go back in time, I'm sure the anonymous patron would tell herself, maybe when you're 30, do this, but not now. Not now. You know? So I feel like there should be some kind of education so that people can make a decision knowing about the risks.
Yeah, no, it's like the same thing. You can start to get into escorting, from what I understand, at 18 too. It's like, as soon as you turn 18, you can kind of do anything you want. I do think, doing cam work that young is really, I would recommend it at all. I could definitely see where it's like, oh, sweet, I can make a lot of money fast. But because it's so, it does require like so many kind of, I was such a crazy person at 18. I was making so many mistakes. Just I didn't have boundaries about anything. It's kind of something that over time, as I've gotten older, I've been able to, just learn about so many things that have helped me navigate, prevent horrible situations. Someone was that young, and it's not like they have a mentor or someone helping. It's not that kind of thing. Definitely I could see where it would be damaging for sure. I mean, you could say it could be damaging at at 32. I just think it kind of, it depends on the person. Anytime you're kind of like engaging with the internet, I would say it's kind of like, oh, you're subjecting yourself to, even just reading comment sections, like it could be very damaging, like, so you have to kind of make a choice, like, okay, that's going to cause me emotional stress. Like, it's not going to do anything good. It's just going to do something bad, not for everyone, but for someone necessarily, it might be like, oh,
how many, like you said, how many young people or even older people know what the consequences are. And I really like the idea you threw out there about having a mentor, someone who's been there, done that, who cares and will check in and say, how you doing? Where are you at? And given what you're saying, maybe you shouldn't do it at this age, because there are these risks, and seems like that could go a long way.
Yeah, there's that power imbalance too, because so it is upsetting, but this is how it is. The cam models who are kind of like making the most money at any given time, like typically are very young. Like, it's like you go to the first couple of pages of the website, like 90% are gonna, meaning like the highest level people in their room watching, like in the thousands, stuff like that. These are typically girls that are, like 18, 19, 20, like that's it. Like beyond that, it's like a steep decline where you're getting to like niche people. So like, like for me as like a 35-year-old, it's like, I'm getting guys that, I get younger guys too, but typically guys are around my age, some older, but I'm never going to have like 20,000 people in my room because I'm 30. It's really upsetting, but it's the truth. Like, it's because I'm 35. It's like this weird thing where there are a lot of guys that are kind of like, oh, they're going on solely for, it's like, oh, she's like young and naive and like she doesn't know what she's doing, and I can have power over her because she's like very young and stuff like that. And it's a huge, I would say, if you were to interview someone that was like around that, their experience would be, I would think, completely different from mine because of that. Because it's just sadly, like, because of their age, you're kind of attracting a very different audience than I am. It's going to be
interesting. Yeah. Almost like if you're 18, you should say you're 35, so that on the website.
Yeah, right. Because it would also like filter that, because people filter for that. So it's like, oh, it would put you in, even if you looked very young still, it'd be like, oh, it's going to put you in this category. Right. Or, someone might be like, oh, like you look so young, but you're like, no, I'm 35. Like, you're still not going to get the weirdos that are like, oh, she's so young. Like, that she just got out of college, or she's in college. Like, it's so, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to like kink shame or anything, but it is kind of like there's like a lot of, because it's such a kind of big power imbalance there in this one direction. It's just kind of, I don't know, on top of they're new to it. They don't, she had been doing it for 3 years, so I'm sure she knows a lot, but still, like, if you're kind of just starting and you're young and you're kind of inexperienced with other things and your life's volatile, because I mean, not for everyone, but I know when I was like 18, 19, it was just like so volatile. Like, there's all these things, like, you're in college, you're doing stuff, or you're, working a job, like, I don't know, it's just a lot going on. My life is like so kind of boring compared to when I was that age. And so, I don't know, I guess like you could, put on some sort of regulation or, mental, you could come up with some sort of actual like helping program. I don't know what that would look like, but that's like a good idea, just to help kind of like prevent bad things from happening. Yeah.
This last email, I won't read the whole thing, but he was writing in talking about how he met his wife. She was a cam model. I think he is from the States, and she was from in the Philippines. They were both young, in their early 20s, and he says, I was young, 22, inexperienced with women, shy and very insecure. And so he goes on to say that he met her on the campsite. They started communicating outside of the campsite. It progressed to them seeing each other in person. And then he says, about a year after my visit to her, we started talking about getting married. I think her decision was 60% financial based and 40% love. So kind of what we're talking about with Jimena. She came to the U.S., K-1 visa, they got married, they had kids, and then their relationship didn't go so well, and they broke up. And so he says here, we are still currently married and have told each other we still love each other, but we're not really in love. I haven't told anyone where I really met my wife. I was a bit ashamed of it, and my wife is also ashamed. I feel like relationships that start from a campsite that can work, but it's really hard to know how genuine it is. A lot of cam models, of course, want to make you feel special so you can spend money on them. That's how they get paid. For very insecure guys like me, it can be read the wrong way, and many, I think, many will think that there's more to it than there really is. So that's kind of what we were talking about before, is that if you, as a customer, are insecure and you're having a hard time dating, that you end up you're so desperate that you're just like, oh my God, this woman is paying attention to me. I know I'm paying her. Yeah. And I know that there are dozens of other men also paying her, and maybe even in the room with us right now in a virtual room. But I'm so desperate for someone to love me, and so desperate for someone to pay attention to me, and so desperate for companionship and romance that maybe this is the chance, and I just need it to happen so bad. Have you ever experienced that before?
Definitely. There's a lot of, or a percentage of people that come in to talk to me that are, men that are, awkward, have had even sometimes they're younger and they've had like bad experiences with women, or they're just like, they never know what to say, or like how to, it might be kind of a socially awkward person and stuff like that. And I do definitely feel like part of my job, I mean, maybe it's like a personal thing or a personal like morality thing, but it's also make them have a really positive experience with a woman, like with women in general, like to see women as equals and people. And I think people, like how you described, are very much susceptible to possibly going the other way, where it's like not all of the time, but it kind of starts off like, oh, lowly women treat me bad because I'm socially awkward, or they act like really mean to me, or they act like they don't care and I can't find anyone, and blah, blah, blah. And, they could either say like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Oh God, I just want some companionship. Or they could say like, women suck. Like they're evil people. Like I need to get back at them. Like, all this crazy stuff. And so to me, it's very important to kind of show them that like, I'm like super, like I'm very human. Like most of my friends honestly are male. Like, I have both male and female, but I just see men as like people, just like women as people. It's very like.
So you're kind of saving the world one incel at a.
No, I mean, that's like, I'm not important like that or anything.
Maybe a stepping stone, really giving someone a little bit more confidence, a little bit more self-esteem, so that they can venture off into the world.
Yeah, it's kind of, so I'll give them like dating advice a lot of the time. Like, some people come to me like, oh, I got like this person said this to me, like, this girl I went out on a date with, like, I was like, oh my God, okay, here, you should say this. Do you understand why she thinks that? Like, blah, blah. Like, I'll give them kind of, try. I mean, it's going to be mine, not like everyone's, not necessarily the girl would agree with me, but I'll say, at least from my perspective, this is how I would see that and how you can do this. And so I try to help. And I do think like the more someone, I mean, I have social anxiety myself. I've been on like citalopram for like, 10 years or something. And so for me, it's very awkward too. Like in a lot of, I may seem extroverted here, but it's like, I'm very like, when I'm in social situations, very nervous, and I talk a lot kind of to make up for that and stuff like that. And I'm like afraid of social situations. So I kind of relate to the idea of it being very scary. And, I feel like, kind of solidarity with anyone who kind of comes to me and has that kind of feeling. Yeah.
Well, Britney, it's been illuminating. We've been talking for almost 2 hours, which
What? Really?
Yeah. which I can't believe. And there's like a lot more to talk about, but I feel like we should adjourn at this point.
Yeah.
I'm sure that a lot of the listeners have been benefited from this. I know a lot of people out there have a similar career or at least related career to you. People will email in, and I'm sure they appreciate you humanizing the field, the occupation. And of course, as you were saying earlier, for all you listeners out there, everyone can have a different point of view in terms of what line they want to have for themselves and their partners. But we don't want to say that those individuals can define all of our morals and values.
Totally. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Britney.
Oh my God, thank you for inviting me. It's such a honor, seriously.
And everyone out there, please take care of yourself. Britney, why should people take care of themselves?
Because you deserve it. You really do. Really, really do. Yeah, like I said, oh my God, it's so amazing to meet you in person. I'm like totally thrilled. And yeah, I listen to you every day. It's like part of my routine. It's like I get up, I make my coffee, and I sit and I watch like your videos. So it's like, oh my God, I've been doing it for almost like a year now, and you've helped me so much just with figuring out like ways to talk to people, like diplomatic, because like just like you have conflicts as people, and kind of recognizing what are the actual feelings like that are going on rather than like saying what I'm just automatically gonna say, and having that kind of drilled in like every day, like over and over again. It's just it's been like amazing.